want to welcome you back to the D-Lo Show. I am your host, Ryan D-Lo Delosier. In the D-Lo Show, I like to cover a lot of true crime cases that are from Yakima, from the Yakima Valley. Like we've covered cases from the Lower Valley, covered stuff from Spokane. We kind of get all over the state here. And this one is up in north central Washington in a city. I don't even call it a city up there. Everything's so rural in that area. It's Riverside, Washington. So in true crime, we do often look for a clear-cut why. Why did this happen? Why did this person get murdered? Why did we steal this? Why did we do that? A motive that goes along with it. We want a motive. We want something that makes sense, gives a reason, a purpose as to why this happened. But today's case from Riverside, Washington, it challenges the very idea of a simple narrative. So for a decade, the story of Patrick Alltus was the story of this good Samaritan, betrayed, a man who spent his life helping others only to be murdered by the teenagers he took into his home to help them. Remember, we know this guy is a good Samaritan. He took in people to be able to help them, get a good going along with their lives, things like that. Recently, though, a new voice has entered the conversation, the voice of the killer herself, alleging that the good deed wasn't what it seemed. So today, we're looking at the murder of Patrick Alltus and the two versions of the truth that still haunt this case. All right, so as we look into the story, as we dive deep into it, Patrick Alltus was 39 years old, and to the community of Okanogan County up in north central Washington state, he was a hero. He was a volunteer firefighter. He worked in search and rescue, and he was a former FedEx driver. Friends described him as someone who, quote, collected strays. He couldn't stand to see someone in need. In September of 2024, that kindness led him to take in his 16-year-old niece, Shalin. Her father said she was uncontrollable. Shortly after Patrick went even further, he picked up Shalin's boyfriend as well, 16-year-old Parker Bachtold, from a youth crisis center and then gave him a place to stay as well. For a few weeks, it seemed like a fresh start. But on October 5th of 2014, the front door of that Riverside home opened to a nightmare. So Patrick's girlfriend, Lisa, hadn't heard from him in days. And when she entered the house, she found Patrick's body in the living room floor. She had been shot twice. Once with a .22 caliber rifle and once with a .410 caliber shotgun. And if you know these, like 22 is it's kind of a smaller handgun. It's on the small side. And then the .410 caliber shotgun. And typically when you hear shotgun, you think 12 gauge. This is a smaller gauge. It's actually, they make a pistol that is it's the Taurus Judge, and it will shoot 45 caliber ammunition, or it'll shoot a .410 shotgun shell. So kind of gives you an idea of what it is. It could still be shot in a pistol. It's a smaller, but it is definitely like if the .410, 22 maybe not so much the rifle, but the .410 caliber shotgun, yeah, that'll do some damage. So regardless, we'll carry on right here. So he was covered in blankets when he was found by his girlfriend Lisa, and a plastic bag had been placed over his head. The teenagers were gone, but so was Patrick's Ford F-250, his wallet, and his guns. And then the manhunt went for trying to find out where these kids went, where they went with the stolen F-250, with the wallet and the guns. And that manhunt for these individual teenagers ended in Oregon. When police caught up with Shalin and Parker, the finger pointing began immediately. Parker claimed Shalin fired the first shot, and he only fired the second to put Patrick out of his misery. Shalin claimed she was a terrified hostage forced to flee at gunpoint after Parker committed the murder. The legal system didn't buy Shalin's hostage story. Parker, He went in and he pleaded guilty, and he got 30 years. Shalin went to trial, though, was found guilty, and was sentenced to over 38 years. For years, the case seemed closed. The motive? According to the sheriff at the time, there was no clear reason. It was just a senseless, cold-blooded act by two troubled kids. But then, the legal landscape shifted. In 2019, Shalin's sentence was overturned. The court ruled that the judge hadn't properly considered her mitigating circumstances, the fact that her 16-year-old brain was still developing, and the fact that she had a history of severe trauma. The public record mentioned a horrific abduction and rape that she suffered at age 13. Her defense argued that she was a broken child. Her sentence was reduced to 30 years, matching Parker's. But the most explosive update came recently through an interview Shalin gave from prison on the podcast AQS Inmate Call. In that interview, Shalin breaks her silence on a topic the initial trial barely touched. She speaks about sexual abuse. While the community saw a good Samaritan, Shalin describes an environment of fear. She alleges that her time in that home was defined by abuse that the authorities never looked for. If her claims are true, it changes the entire why of the case. It transforms the murder from a senseless thrill kill into a desperate, violent reaction to ongoing trauma. So, which story is true? Was Patrick Alltus a selfless man whose kindness was met with evil? Or was he a man with a dark secret, and Shalin was a victim of sexual assault and domestic violence who saw no other way out, which we've seen in some other cases leads to what I've referred to in the Hansen murder, a justified homicide. The court has made its ruling, but in the court of public opinion and for those who listen to Shalin's voice on those inmate calls, the case of Patrick Alltus is far from settled. And I want to thank you for hanging in with me on this episode of the D-Lo Show. This is an interesting one, as well as they all are as I go through these. This case right here happened up in the area up in north central Washington. Pretty desolate, pretty isolated. The kids in this case had their struggles in school, and had their struggles in life, and like was mentioned to Patrick when he took in Shalin, was that she was uncontrollable. The girl was out of control. So he supposedly took her in to be able to help her with the things going on in her life, and how it worked out. The kids and obviously, I think when you are kidnapped and raped when you're 13 years old, then that's going to lead to some childhood trauma that's going to carry over into other areas of your life. And if you're not seeking the help, which I don't think she was getting all the help that she needed to be able to get those demons out, they're going to come out in other ways. So again, in this episode, we explored this is a tragic 2014 murder of Patrick M. Alltus. Happened in Riverside, Washington, up in the desolate area of Washington State. I mean, we're up above Shalin. It's you kind of got to be intentional. Unless you're heading for Canada, you're probably not really going to go up there. So yeah, and Patrick just happened to open his home up to these kids who maybe needed a place to stay, but maybe he had an ulterior motive as well too. And it would have been interesting to hear more about that as they got into it. It doesn't sound like that made the court case, and I do wonder, with the small town sheriff who's not the sheriff there anymore, how that might have played into the fact that Patrick was this upstanding good citizen of the community who was a firefighter and worked for search and rescue. There's no way that he could have been abusing these kids, right? I mean, we totally couldn't see that helping being this person who helps these kids come in. And a lot of times you see the people who were in these positions as well, a lot of times are in those positions because they're abusers themselves. And it doesn't mean that Patrick Alltus he's not convicted right now of anything. But it puts a little bit behind it too. I don't think, Shalin, when she made these statements, she was still behind bars, and she is still behind bars today. She has 30 years on her sentence sentence. It got dropped from 38 down to 30. But I do wonder as well, because she committed this crime when she was 15. And the brain, like that, like they mentioned before, was not fully developed. So there's cases before that we've seen in the past where they've dropped these as well, where I talked about the Nikoloff murders, and their cases were dropped down. I forget what the maximum is now, but 38 would have been pushing it right there from where she's put it in her time. And the same thing going right here. I think the Nikoloffs are going to be out in they have a chance for parole. Their murders happened. They've been in jail. I think it's 2028 is when they got a chance to come out. So I can't remember exactly how long it is, but I'd have to go back and take a look. But I do know that that there is, up until when you reach a certain age, there is a limit now in the state of Washington as to how many years you can go in jail. A life sentence doesn't mean life. It's got an end point to it. So, and she did this when she was 15. So even in our state right here, we'll have a case coming up as well too, where I'm going to cover the case of Jose Franco, and where he is currently being tried for murder, and he's in juvenile detention right now. But he's going to be on trial for murder coming up pretty soon. And he's 17. The juvenile court, I've learned that the juvenile court will pass their jurisdiction over to the adult courts when the child commits a crime when they're 16 or 17. Shalin, this court may have, the juvenile court in Yakima, if this had happened here, may not have even sent it up the chain to the adult courts yet. So it'll be interesting to kind of see what happens with her as we go along with this case. I'll come back. I don't know. I mean, the wheels of justice move slow, and when you're in jail and you've already convicted, and she has admitted that should be in jail for what she did, but she just doesn't think she should be in there for that long, because she does admit that she killed him, and but was responding to the trauma. So yeah, we'll look more into this as well in some other cases. So if you like what you're hearing, go ahead and keep on listening. You can give me that 5-star. It helps other people be able to find this podcast as well. Share it with your friends. Share it on your socials, and I will keep cranking them out. In the meantime, thank you for listening to the D-Lo Show, and I will be back to get more from you again and get more out to you again later.